So we're on page 55, solve proportional relationships. This is chapter 1, lesson 6. Fruit smoothies. Katie and some friends want to buy fruit smoothies. They go to the health food store that advertises a sale for 2 fruit smoothies for $5. Fill in the boxes and write the ratio that compares to the cost of the number of fruit smoothies. So they're buying, for $5, they're buying 2 fruit smoothies. Suppose Katie and her friends buy 6 fruit smoothies. Complete the ratio that compares the cost to the number of fruit smoothies. So if we're doing the cost of each smoothie, our unit rate is going to be $2.50 a smoothie. Smoothie. So in order to do that, we'd have to find out how much it costs for 6 smoothies. So we could also look at it like this. For 2 smoothies, it was $5. So if we wanted to find out how much it costs for 6 smoothies, we would multiply the 2 smoothies times 3 to get 6 smoothies. Let's change the color. Times 3, which means that we'd also have to multiply the numerator by 3. So we would have $15 for 6 smoothies. And let's check that. Is 15 divided by 6? 15 divided by 6, is that 250? Oh, it sure is. And that's still $2.50 a smoothie.
Could we just, if we figure out what the, like, each one is by itself, could we just do 250 times 6?
Yeah, that's one of the 2 methods that we're going to have this one. Yep.
All
so
right.
you just had some foresight for the end of the lesson. Yep. So is the cost proportional to the number of smoothies for 2 and the 6 smoothies? Explain. And that would be yes. The unit rate is $2.50 for each smoothie in both situations. In both cases, that's a shorter word. In both cases. So there's one situation where we're going to have unit rates. The other one is going to be finding a proportion, and we're going to learn about proportions right now. Looks like everyone's done. Okay. Jayla, you done writing? You done writing? Double checking. Okay, I didn't want to move the screen if you weren't done writing. Write and solve proportions. A proportion is an equation stating 2 ratios or rates are equivalent. So for example, 6/8 is equal to 3/4. You guys have been doing this all year when you have been solving so many different expressions and equations, and you have to have it into simplest form. So this is just putting things into simplest form. So that's the state of mind as far as having a proportion be equivalent. So as far as the algebra goes about it, so that's just saying that for any number A over B is equal to C over D. That's as long as B does not equal 0 and D does not equal 0, because you can't divide something into equal parts of nothing. So I'm going to jump ahead of this part right here because it's teaching you how to do what we're going to learn about right now before we even learn about it. So I'm right here. Products of A, D, and B, C are called cross products. It's called a cross because if you look at this right here, ooh, that's a bad one. If you look at this right here, it makes a cross, okay? It makes a cross of this proportion. Cross products of any proportion are equal. So what happened is we multiplied 6 times 4, which is right here, and we multiplied 6 times 4 and 8 times 3, and 8 times 3 is right here. And it comes out to be 24 over 24. Because as you know, if you were to simplify 6/8, it's going to be the same thing as 3/4. So that might seem a lot of words, but let's do an example. Example 1. After 2 hours, the air temperature had risen 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Write and solve a proportion to find the amount of time it will take at this rate for the temperature to rise an additional 13 degrees Fahrenheit. So what's happening in this one is we have the temperature, we have the 7 degrees temperature, which is right here, and we also have the 13 degrees temperature, which is right here. And notice how they stay in the numerator. Whenever you're doing a proportion, you want to make sure that you are having the numerator be the same unit and the denominator be the same unit. So I'm going to demonstrate this a little bit better by having the proportions because they just kind of jump into it. So I'm going to rewrite this right here. So we have 7 halves is equal to 13t. Because we know that if it raised 7 degrees in 2 hours, we want to find out how long it took to get 13 hours at that same rate. So I'm going to do the cross multiplication. So there's 7 times t equals 13 times 2, and that's where they get to this. So they did the cross multiplication of those two ratios. So we have 7t times 26, and if this looks familiar, it should, because that's what we did when we were solving equations. And this is just one step equation. 7t equals 26. If we want to find out what t is equal to, we have to multiply, or since t is the coefficient, it's being multiplied by 7. Sorry, 7's coefficient. The opposite of multiplication, the inverse operation, is dividing both sides by 7. And because this is an equal sign, you have to stay equal by dividing both sides by 7. And then here's that about symbol, because if you divide 26 by 7, you're going to get a really long decimal in your calculator. So they do about 7. So they rounded to the nearest tenth. It will take about 3.7 hours to raise an additional 13 degrees Fahrenheit, because we were looking for the amount of time, and that's what this shows right here. So the cross multiplication, they solved for a variable. Let's put it into practice. So I have x over 4 is equal to 9/10, but I want to find out what is the value of x that will keep that expression or that proportion true. I need to cross multiply, so I have 10x is equal to 4 times 9. Now, you won't necessarily have to write out 4 times 9 to show your work. You can just do that in your calculator, but because I'm demonstrating this, I wrote 4 times 9. So I'm going to rewrite this. 10x is equal to 36, but now I have to solve for x. So I divide both sides by, ooh, that's too big. So I divide both sides by 10 to get my variable by itself. So I have x is equal to 3.6. X is equal to 3.6. So the main concept is cross multiplication. Yeah, Elise?
Does it matter which side the variable's on?
That's a great question. It does not matter. It does not matter what side you put the variable on, because if you have, and it also doesn't even matter what order you write the multiplication, because if you had 2 times 3, you don't have to write this, is equal to 3 times 2, that's still going to be 6 equals 6. So you can put it on whatever side you want to. Yep, that's a great question. So for letter B, I'm going to cross multiply once again. So I'm going to do 2y, and the difference between this one is the variables in the lower right in the denominator. And 34 times 5. 34 times 5 is 150 plus 20, which is 170. I need to get the variable by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Y is equal to, 85. Now the variable is in the numerator on the right side. Since I'm solving for the proportion, I need to do cross products. So I have 3n and 7 times 21. So now I have 140 plus 7 need to divide both sides by 3 to get the variable by itself. So I get 49. Are there any questions so far? If A, B, and C make sense to you, that's what the whole homework is. There aren't any word problems in tonight's homework. There's going to be word problems tomorrow, but not today. So if you feel good about this already, you are set and ready to go for tonight or this afternoon, because this lesson is going to take most of the class. All right, so here is the actual difficult part of this section. If the ratio of type O and non-type O donors at a blood drive was 37 to 43, how many donors would be type O out of 300 donors? So we know this ratio, but we're trying to find out what if there were 300 of them. So the way that we find that out is we're going to take how many people are type O of the donors, and we're going to add the people that are type O and the people that are not type O donors. So we take this ratio here, and the way to remember it, that it's something different, is it almost looks like military time, where there's a number and then a colon and then another number. So we're going to add those two together. Oops. We're going to add those two together. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this and this and this. We're going to add those two together. Now, it skips a step here as far as the cross products goes. So I'm just going to rewrite this here. 37 over 80 equals T over 300. I need to find the cross products of those numbers. So I have 80T equals 37 times 300, and that brings us back to right here. So there's a perfect example of it doesn't matter what side you put it on, because they have 80T, or they have 37 times 300 equals 80T, and I have 80T equals 37 times 300. So they multiply those together and they get 11,100 is equal to 80T. We need to solve for our variable with the inverse operation of multiplication. We divide by 80 on both sides, and we get 138.75 is the amount of people who are total donors. Now, notice how they rounded up to 139. The reason they did that is because it's people. You can't have only half of a person, regardless of maybe an amputation or whatever it is, or 0.75 of a person. A person is still a person, so they rounded up to 139. So let's do that method for this one. So we have the ratio of 7th grade students to 8th grade students in a soccer league is 17 to 23. So there are 17 7th graders. There are 17 7th graders. And there are 23 8th graders. If there are 200 students in all, how many are in the 7th grade? So I'm going to take these two numbers and have them in the denominator. So I'm looking for 7th graders, and the total people that are there is 17 plus 23. This is coming from that ratio right there. So I'm just going to go from there. So we have 17 over 40. And I need to find out, since the total number is going to be 200, I don't know how many are in 7th grade. And since the 7th graders, that's the 17 kids. I don't know this, so I can just say students. I'll do S. I don't want to use S. That looks like a 5. We'll do K for kids. So now, just like we did before, I'm going to use cross products. So now I have 40K is equal to 17 times 200. 17 times 200 is going to be 1,140. 17 times 200. Oh, wow, did it again. 3,400. So I need to solve for k on this one. So I need to divide both sides by 40. Now, the reason why I'm going so fast is a couple reasons. A, I'm recording this, and B, once we reach the point that we've already learned before, I'm kind of just going full blast on it. So there are 85 seventh graders. 85 seventh graders in my first 3 classes. So the main thing about that is when you take the ratio that has the colon in it, you have to add them together. How many 7th graders, how many 8th graders, you add those together in the denominator because that's the total amount of students, and they're telling us, okay, if we have 200 students, how many of them are 7th grade? You can also use a unit rate to write the equation expressing the relationship between 2 proportional quantities. For example, Olivia bought 6 containers of yogurt for $7.68. Write an equation relating to the cost, C, to the number of yogurts, Y. How much would Olivia pay for 10 yogurts at the same time? So they used a unit rate. Since it's cost $7.68 for 6 of them, the unit rates from section 2, maybe section 1 from this chapter, they found that it was $1.28 per container. It's asking us how much is it for 10 of them. So all you're going to do is multiply that unit rate by 10, and they got the cost of 10 containers is $12.80. So for this example, they also use the unit rate. JC bought 8 gallons of gas for $31.12. Write an equation relating to the cost C to the number of gallons G of gas. How much would JC pay for 11 gallons at the same rate? So since it cost $31 for 8 gallons, they divided 3112 by 8, and they got $3.89 a gallon. Since that's per gallon, if you multiply that by 11, that will tell you that it'll be 11 gallons of gas is $42.79. Any questions at this point? Okay. So Olivia typed 2 pages in 15 minutes. Write an equation relating to the number of minutes M to the number of pages P typed. How long would it take her to type 10 pages at that rate? So it says write it in minutes to pages. So if I were to do it the way they just did it, let's find the unit rate. So how many? She does in 15 minutes. She does 2 pages. So that means that her unit rate is 7.5 minutes per page. So if I have, we'll do pages. So how long is it going to take her to do? 7.5. She's typing for 10 pages. So if I wanted to do it, 7.5 times P. No. Yeah. Good. So 7.5 times P. So that means that in 75 minutes or 1 hour, 15 minutes, Olivia can type 10 pages. Another way that we could do that, since I'm recording this, is we could have done this ratio here. If they're doing 2 pages, so pages here, minutes here, 2 pages in 15 minutes, how long would it take to do 10 pages? Page, 10 minutes. You could do it like that and do the cross multiplication, and you get it that way as well. All right, just as a reminder, this is exactly like what your homework is. I'm going to do number 1 with you, and then I'm going to have you guys do number 2 and 3. So we're solving for K. So we're going to do the cross products. So we have 32 times 7 is equal to 56K, which was a decent connection, I guess, when I was your age. So that is 224. It's equal to 56K. Now, you would not necessarily have to write this out when you're doing it yourself. You probably are just going to jump to this step right here, since you're using calculators and all. Now I need to solve for K. I need to divide both sides by 56. So I get 4 equals K, which is the same thing as K equals 4. I would like you all to take a couple of minutes to do number 2 and number 3. Cross products of these two. So I have 3.2 times 36 is equal to 9n, which is 115.2 equals 9n. I need to solve for my variable. Which is 12.8. For number 3, 5x. That's a really easy one, so I'm just going to write 82. I need to solve for the variable, divide both sides by 5. 82 is going to what, 40.41. No. 16.4. $16.4. Are there any questions on those two? Okay. All right, let's start to wrap it up. Trina earns $28.50 for tutoring 3 hours. Write an equation relating to her earnings M and the number of hours H that she tutors. Assuming the situation is proportional, how much would Trina earn tutoring 2 hours or 5 hours? So I need to find out the unit rate. So she makes $28.50 in 3 hours. So 28.5 divided by 3 is 9.5. So that means she makes $9.5 an hour. So my equation would be she makes the money of 9.5 with that many hours. So to solve for this, I'm going to substitute in $9.5 for 2 hours is going to be $19 for 2 hours. And then for $9.50 for 4.5 hours, I do 9.5 times 4.5. So she makes $42.75 in 4.5 hours. You could also do the ratio with proportions with that one. I chose to do the unit rate on that one because that was the most recent example. So for those of you that might have done really poorly on any of the assignments, if you want to have a summary of what the whole lesson is, you just look at the last thing that we do in every lesson that we do. Okay, that whenever someone does like very poorly on a homework assignment, if they just looked at this, or what you guys write down, it would have solved so many of the issues. So how do you solve a proportion? You use horrible handwriting. Okay, let's try it again. Use cross products and then you solve the one-step equation. And to summarize the last 30 minutes is you just use the cross products and solve the one-step equation. That's what we'll be doing every time. That's what it shows that we did for these guided examples.